all like us, essentially. They just have fur and show affection by licking people's eyes, which is disgusting. Hello, welcome to Sound of Fairy Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. I promised you something wild for the next classic sci-fi, and I think this delivers. So it is The Cuckoo's Egg by C.J. Cherryh. I realized it's pronounced Cherry. I was like, Shara? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, this is a 1985 classic sci-fi from DAW. I haven't read any of C.J. Cherryh yet before now, despite having quite a few of them on my shelf. And I now understand why she is a staple of the genre. This book was really, really fun. It was unputdownable. It was fascinating and poignant and kind of sad. The story carrying a melancholy and ponderous tone, as well as a deep sympathy for the human character who undergoes severe manipulation his entire life. It's, yeah, definitely not like a pulpy, definitely not like a pulp story. So what is it about? The Shunin call him Thorn, and although he was so very different, they told him he was of their people. He knew he was ugly in their eyes, strange, sleek-skinned instead of furred, clawless, other. Yet he had been raised as part of the Shunin's power class, an elite caste that was comprised of judge warriors, fighters, defenders. And Thorn knew that his differentness was of huge import, for there were murderous conspiracies against him, his protector, even his caste, conspiracies that threatened the peace of his world. But when Thorn finally learned what his true role in life was to be, that on his shoulders would rest the fate of two worlds and two very different species, he had to stand alone to justify his very existence. That actually isn't really correct, but it also doesn't explain a ton. But basically we have an older Shunin of some renown named Dun taking a human baby into his care. The story basically follows the baby from infancy until his late teens. The fascinating thing about this novel is that Thorn, the human, grows up isolated from the Shunin, so it's not like he's like living among them, and Dun, I'm just calling him Dune deliberately withholds information from him about the world and the society. The story jumps between Dune and Thorn in terms of third-person point of view, so we learn somewhat of why Dune is doing this, but we also identify with Thorn because of his confusion, his desire to fit in, and his desperation to please his adopted father and live up to his legacy. So the main kind of gist of the story is that Dune starts training Thorn in his Hitani warrior culture when Thorn is a child. This is a rigorous, somewhat emotionally abusive process that further leads to Thorn's confusion, as everything about Thorn's life seems to be a test by Dune. He's never quite sure if what is happening, if he should be on his guard, if Dune is testing him, if Dune is being sincere, and even we, the reader, aren't really sure. So we really kind of identify. It's very mimetic in that way, and I really liked that part of it. The entire book, given this kind of process, has a bit of a mystery quality to it, as we're never sure what Thorn is or where he's from, though he's quite obviously Terran, but we're like, why is he here? Because Dune never explains why he's here, and he never really finds it. I mean, he finds it at the end. The withholding aspect of this part of the story makes perfect sense at the end of the book, and the reason why everything was withheld from us and why it was held from Thorn also makes sense. It's just, when you're reading it, you're like, oh, I know there's something, but I don't really know what it is. I can guess it, but I'm not really sure. And that part was masterfully done. In terms of alien culture, while there was some difference in the way society was set up, like the Shunin society compared to human society, at times Dun felt like a human with fur. I suppose some of this is because it's an intimate novel, focusing mainly on the dynamic and relationship between Thorn and Dun. So we don't see a lot of the aliens at large. We don't see a lot of the alien culture communicating or living together. We just see Thorn's reaction to them and their reaction to Thorn. There also wasn't space in the novel for too much complexity on parts of the aliens, I think, as the relationship aspect was intricate enough. Still, I love how Thorn was the displaced one and how we learn about the aliens as he does. I thought that was really fun. Overall, because I want to keep talking about it, but I don't want to because I don't want to spoil anything, it's an addictive read and I highly recommend it. It's really short. This is actually like a 2-part book. Most of this is Serpent's Reach. Cuckoo's Egg stops like here. So most of it is the other book. So it's only like 210 pages. It's short, but it doesn't feel short. It's got a lot of heft to it. So yeah, that's my review. I'm gonna jump into my classic sci-fi bingo now. If you aren't aware, this is where I go through my bingo chart and I talk about things in the novel. I use it as kind of like a jumping off point, and then I try to see if this book will get a bingo. I don't have high hopes for this one because it's just, as I said, it's kind of an intimate novel between like mainly two people, so there isn't a lot of room for like all the other sci-fi tropes, but there are some things, and there are things I want to talk about. So yeah, there are spoilers in this. Outdated science. Yes, in terms of a spacefaring species using tapes to disseminate information. But I would argue, based on how the Shunin were basically just slightly ahead of us in terms of spaceflight, the tapes were what we had in the 60s when we initially went to space, that this isn't actually too far-fetched and too outdated. So actually, I would say that no, technically it's not really outdated. Also, they're aliens. If they want to use cassette tapes or whatever, then they can. Spaceship blows up and crashes. There's some kind of space battles, but no, not really. Predicting social changes? No, because there's no humans other than Thorn. Sexy female scientist? No. Cool aliens? Definitely yes. I explained this in the review already, but the Shunin, despite having some too similar traits to humans, do feel alien still, and she gave them some differences in both appearance, culture, and habits to reinforce this throughout. I also wonder if they are deliberately like us to give hope for Dunn's plan, that Thorn can build rapport with Earth. If they were like jelly blobs or something, this wouldn't have worked the same way. So I did appreciate that they are quite humanoid. I like that anyway. I prefer that to like an unhumanoid species. But yeah, I mean, look at this guy. My camera sucks. Alien human romance. Oh yeah. So Thorn gets the hots for Batan, one of the students Dunn hires later in the novel to help Thorn with the tapes and with Thorn's education. Dunn interrupts them when they're making out and pretty much like in a pre-coital position. And of course, Thorn is upset. Batan takes off. Dunn doesn't really have much to say about this, but then we get some information later about the differences between Shunin and human anatomy. Not enough that I really understand, but it was interesting that they would suggest that, because he's like, oh, you would hurt her. And I'm like, what does that mean? Anyway, so that was interesting. Generation ship? No. Space soldiers? No. AI or robots? No. New worlds? Kind of. I would say no, though, because it's very similar to Earth, and the planet itself is not a huge part of the story. I mean, most of it takes place on like this estate that's basically just like rocks and mountains, and there's not much different from here, so I was like, not really. Cyberpunk? No. Blatant sexism? No. Spaceship? Forerunner technology? No. LGBTQ plus representation? Yes, a little bit, to the extent that Dunn mentions requesting male attention at one point. So it appears the Shunin are not homophobes, at least. Yet I don't think it counts if it's aliens. Like, I don't think queer representation is really representation if it's only aliens. Because having an alien culture be queer accepting, if there are no human queer people, serves to other the alienness and the queerness together as one thing. I don't think that was the intention of Cherry. I don't think that she was attempting to do this, but I think that given the way our society functions, that is just a result of kind of the systemic issues facing, LGBTQ+ people in media. Anyway, in this case, in this book, given we only have one human in the novel and Dunn isn't a villain, I like that it was included as something normalized, even if it was normalized in an alien culture. I think that shows positive intent, and I really liked that. It doesn't get a humor, it doesn't get a check mark, but it's queer accepting, I would say, and I think that is great, especially for a novel from 1985. Good year, by the way. Portals or black holes? No. Microfiche? I mean, the tapes? Are the tapes microfiche? We're not really sure. It could be. I kind of hope it is. You know what? I'm going to say that it is. I'm going to say that they're microfiche tapes because I love microfiche. So, it's microfiche tapes. The male MC is kind of a dick. I mean, Thorn isn't. Dunn kind of is, but he's also of this warrior caste where it's accepted, that if he's supposed to be kind of like that. I don't know, I'm kind of torn about this. I would say that Thorn is probably actually the main character, so I guess no, but still, it's Dunn, I would say definitely is, or Dune, whatever his name is. Racial equality? No, because there's only one human. Plasma or other future weapons, yeah, they have more advanced weapons than us. They have, like, guns and plasma guns and stuff. Post-apocalyptic, no. Bounty hunters or assassins, no. Galactic war, no, but there was a galactic incident. Tech similar to today, yes. They have helicopters for some reason. I don't know why, but the aliens, the weird furred aliens, have helicopters. Okay. Passes the Bechdel test, no. That's okay though. My quick pick bonus: reptile aliens. No, they're like more like wolf aliens. Female main character. Nope. And convergent evolution. Yes, I would argue that this is an example of convergent evolution in the universe because the Shunin are bipedal. They speak like with their voice boxes, I guess. They breathe oxygen. They reproduce. They're mammals. You know, that kind of thing. All like us, essentially. They just have fur and show affection by licking people's eyes, which is disgusting. The men also have internal genitalia, I'm presuming, because it kind of alludes to that at one point, but it's still, like, the women still, it's not like they lay eggs. So yes, convergent evolution. So no, it did not get a bingo, but this book is really good, and I really recommend it if you haven't read any C.J. Cherryh before. And apparently, if you're wondering, if you're like, that's not how it's pronounced, no, I looked it up on Google, and that is how you pronounce it. Apparently, her editor or publisher said you should add an H to the end of your name so people don't think you're a romance writer. Wow. Okay. Because, you know, heaven forbid you're romance writer, because you know that's obviously the worst thing you could ever be. So yeah, God, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you liked my messy hair, because I am desperate in need of a haircut, which I mentioned in my last video, or I put it in the comments, or I put it in something, I don't remember. I'm always tired, and yeah, so thanks. And I'm not sure why I'm sitting so far away from the screen here.